January 17, 2025. A desert horizon stretches beneath a pale winter sun. Above, drones hum in precise patterns, scanning for movement invisible to the human eye. Satellites track every vehicle, every soldier, every trace of heat across the barren expanse. The air is still, but tension crackles, the quiet before a storm that could erupt in seconds. In a command center filled with glowing screens and digital maps, the ghostly echoes of history linger. Here, Patton would pace, hand on hip, surveying lines of attack that no longer consist of tanks and infantry alone. Rommel would tilt his head, calculating how to maneuver in a world where battles can be won with the push of a button. Montgomery, meticulous as ever, would cross-check every data feed, struggling to reconcile certainty with chaos that unfolds faster than any messenger could arrive. The question hangs heavy. How would these masters of strategy, forged in the trenches and deserts of World War II, adapt to an age of drones, cyberwarfare, and nuclear weapons? Every decision carries consequences measured not just in territory, but in seconds and lives. History is about to collide with the modern battlefield. The world in 1939 was teetering on the edge of chaos. Europe, scarred by the Great War barely 2 decades earlier, had built fragile alliances and fortified borders, yet peace was brittle. Germany, under Adolf Hitler, had rearmed with astonishing speed, blending ideological fervor with industrial efficiency. France and Britain, haunted by the losses of 1914–1918, hesitated, hoping that diplomacy could delay the inevitable. Amid this tension, a generation of military minds emerged, generals whose reputations would be forged in the fire of battle. George S. Patton, the American officer known for his audacity, had already shown glimpses of brilliance in tank warfare. His philosophy was clear: speed, aggression, and relentless pressure could break the enemy's will. In Europe, Bernard Montgomery, methodical and disciplined, emphasized preparation, logistics, and coordination. He believed that battles were won not just with courage, but with meticulous planning and an unyielding chain of command. Across the continent, Rommel, the Desert Fox, captivated historians with his daring maneuvers in North Africa. He combined tactical brilliance with adaptability, exploiting terrain and surprise to outwit opponents who often outnumbered him. On the Eastern Front, Zhukov became the embodiment of Soviet resilience. Facing the mechanized fury of the Wehrmacht, he mastered large-scale operations, sacrificing divisions to seize strategic advantage, unafraid of decisive, brutal counterattacks. These men and others like them were bound by an era of linear battlefields, defined by infantry lines, armored columns, artillery barrages, and the finite reach of air power. Communication was measured in hours or days. Intelligence came from scouts, intercepted messages, and sometimes sheer luck. The general's mind was the ultimate weapon, the arbiter between chaos and order, where intuition often mattered as much as strategy. Technological innovation had already begun to reshape warfare, yet nothing hinted at the transformation that modern observers take for granted. Radar was in its infancy, cryptography was a clandestine art, and mechanized units were pushing the boundaries of mobility. Airplanes, though capable of massed bombing raids, lacked the precision of guided munitions. Commanders relied on maps, compasses, and radios, tools that today would seem archaic. The general's authority was immediate, personal. Orders carried weight because there was no alternative, no automated system to fill the gap. Each decision was a gamble with tangible consequences. A failed assault could cost thousands of lives. A misjudged retreat could alter entire campaigns. Yet despite limitations, these leaders demonstrated an almost uncanny ability to read the battlefield. Patton's rapid armored thrusts through France in 1944 were a masterclass in momentum and psychological warfare. Rommel's counterattacks in the deserts of North Africa turned desperation into opportunity. Montgomery's careful preparation at El Alamein ensured that numerical inferiority would not translate into defeat. Zhukov, facing the Wehrmacht's advance on Moscow, orchestrated defensive lines and counteroffensives with precision, proving that scale and organization could challenge even the most confident attacker. Their world was tactile. Maps were unrolled on tables, messengers ran between command posts, and radios crackled with static. Decisions were rooted in observation, reconnaissance, and often instinct. There were no real-time satellites, no instantaneous surveillance feeds, no algorithms predicting enemy movement. Success depended on human foresight, judgment honed through years of study, experience, and sometimes sheer audacity. By understanding these generals in their historical context, we gain insight into their adaptability, ingenuity, and psychological resilience. Each one was a product of his time, yet each possessed qualities that transcend eras: vision, decisiveness, and the ability to inspire men to achieve the extraordinary. It is this foundation that allows us to ask a provocative question. Placed in the modern theater of warfare, with drones, cyber operations, and nuclear deterrents at their disposal, how would these titans of strategy respond? Their minds, forged in trenches and deserts, were about to face a battlefield unlike any they had ever known. The rules had changed, and yet, the essence of command, making choices that could tip the balance between victory and annihilation, remained timeless. The world of modern warfare is almost unrecognizable compared to the theaters of World War II. Gone are the days when generals relied solely on maps, scouts, or intercepted radio transmissions. Today, a commander can observe the battlefield in real time, thousands of miles away, through satellites, drones, and sophisticated sensor networks. A single drone can loiter over enemy lines for hours, transmitting high-resolution imagery, detecting heat signatures, and guiding precision strikes with uncanny accuracy. The immediacy and granularity of intelligence would have been unimaginable to a WW2 commander, and yet, the challenge remains the same, making critical decisions under pressure where every second counts. Precision-guided munitions, long-range artillery with automated targeting, and stealth aircraft have transformed the calculus of combat. Where Patton once relied on armored columns and swift maneuvers to overwhelm an opponent, a modern commander might coordinate drone swarms to neutralize armored units before they can advance. Rommel's desert warfare, once dictated by terrain and surprise, would now be influenced by real-time satellite feeds and GPS tracking. Even Montgomery, meticulous in his logistics, would have access to predictive algorithms capable of modeling enemy behavior across multiple scenarios, enhancing planning but also introducing an entirely new level of complexity. Then there is cyber warfare. Unlike artillery or infantry, cyberattacks are invisible, intangible, yet potentially devastating. Infrastructure, communications, and even nuclear command systems can be disrupted without a single bullet fired. The modern general must now anticipate threats in cyberspace as acutely as on the physical battlefield. A seemingly minor vulnerability could cascade into strategic failure. The battlefield extends beyond geography, into servers, satellites, and networks, challenging the very notion of frontlines. Perhaps the most profound difference lies in nuclear weapons. The destructive potential of a single missile dwarfs anything seen in WW2. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were warnings. Today, the stakes are magnified exponentially. Commanders must weigh not only tactical advantage, but existential risk. Strategic decisions are no longer confined to maneuvering troops or engaging in skirmishes. They can determine the fate of entire nations. The moral and psychological weight of such responsibility is staggering, yet it is part of the modern command landscape that WW2 generals would now confront. Yet despite these technological leaps, the fundamental principles of leadership endure. Intelligence, speed of decision, and the ability to inspire and direct forces remain critical. Modern systems enhance information, but cannot replace judgment. Patton's instinct for rapid exploitation, Montgomery's meticulous planning, Rommel's audacity, and Zhukov's organizational genius, these human qualities would be tested in a new and unforgiving environment. How do you maintain initiative when algorithms provide options faster than a human can evaluate? How do you inspire courage in soldiers when much of the battlefield is automated, mediated through screens and networks? Additionally, modern conflicts blur the line between conventional and asymmetric warfare. Non-state actors, autonomous vehicles, cyber espionage, and electronic warfare complicates strategy in ways that were foreign to WWAI leaders. The linear battlefield has given way to a multidimensional, interconnected theater where information dominance can be as decisive as physical force. Every decision carries amplified consequences, and mistakes are magnified in speed and scope. By understanding this contrast, we begin to frame the central exploration of this documentary. How would WWAI generals, masters of intuition, courage, and battlefield psychology, operate in a world where decisions are measured not just in miles or hours, but in milliseconds and satellite pixels? Their brilliance in the past serves as a lens to examine the challenges of the present. Their adaptability will be tested not by tanks or trenches, but by drones, cyberwarfare, and the omnipresent shadow of nuclear escalation. Command in any era is a test of human judgment under pressure. In World War II, generals like Patton, Rommel, Montgomery, and Zhukov were defined by their decisiveness, intuition, and ability to read the battlefield as if it were an extension of their mind. Orders were direct, personal, and absolute. Soldiers and subordinate officers depended on clarity, courage, and confidence emanating from their leaders. Patton's aggressive style inspired both fear and admiration. Rommel's daring earned him loyalty even among enemies. Montgomery's meticulous preparation instilled a sense of security and inevitability. Placed in the modern era, these same qualities would be challenged by the overwhelming speed and complexity of information. Decisions that once required hours of observation and analysis must now be made in seconds, with data streaming from drones, satellites, and cyber networks. Human leadership remains essential, but it is now interwoven with technology. A modern general must interpret an endless torrent of intelligence while maintaining the psychological composure to act decisively. The ability to inspire trust is no less important. Even as automated systems execute strikes, soldiers, analysts, and remote operators rely on their human commander to provide context, purpose, and direction. Leadership in this environment tests not just knowledge, but resilience, adaptability, and the capacity to maintain clarity amid unprecedented complexity. WWAI tactics were often defined by terrain, maneuver, and attrition. Rommel's campaigns across the deserts of North Africa relied on mobility, surprise, and decentralized decision-making. Patton's armored thrusts emphasized speed and momentum, striking fear into enemy forces before they could organize a defense. Montgomery, in contrast, relied on methodical planning, massed firepower, and secure lines of supply. Each general's tactics were responses to their environment, the capabilities of their forces, and the intelligence available to them. In a modern context, these same tactical instincts would operate under entirely new constraints. The battlefield is no longer linear, it is multidimensional. Drones provide constant surveillance, revealing troop movements and supply lines. Precision-guided munitions can neutralize targets before ground forces engage. Communication networks allow units to respond instantly across vast distances, but they are also vulnerable to cyber interference. A WWAI general would need to adapt classic maneuver principles to a world where speed, stealth, and electronic dominance often determine the outcome. The essence of tactical thinking, anticipating enemy movements, exploiting weaknesses, and seizing initiative, remains, but the execution is magnified by technology and constrained by new risks. The most profound challenge to WWAI generals in the modern era is the sheer scale and lethality of contemporary technology. In their time, artillery barrages, tanks, and aircraft were constrained by range, accuracy, and logistics. Today, drones can surveil entire battlefields continuously, precision-guided missiles strike with near certainty, and AI-assisted systems can simulate countless outcomes in seconds. Even the smallest decision can cascade across networks, triggering automated responses that change the course of an engagement. This technological reality is both a tool and a test. A general like Patton, accustomed to aggressive maneuvers and exploiting rapid opportunity, might embrace drone strikes to augment mobility and reduce risk. Rommel's adaptive strategies could leverage air-assisted reconnaissance to find weak points in real time. Montgomery's obsession with planning would find new expression in predictive algorithms, capable of modeling enemy reactions before they happen. Yet technology also imposes psychological pressure. Mistakes propagate faster, information overload is constant, and adversaries can strike invisibly through cyber channels. Mastery of the battlefield now demands mastery of both human and machine. In World War II, the enemy was visible, defined by national borders, identifiable uniforms, and predictable tactics shaped by doctrine and resource limitations. Generals like Zhukov or Patton could study enemy formations, anticipate maneuvers, and respond to observable weaknesses. Knowledge of terrain, supply lines, and intelligence reports allowed commanders to shape battles with a measure of certainty. In the modern era, the nature of the enemy has evolved dramatically. State actors still exist, but asymmetric threats, non-state militias, cyber attackers, and autonomous systems complicate identification and response. Drones can attack without warning. Cyber strikes can disrupt logistics, communications, and even civilian infrastructure. A modern general faces an adversary who may be unseen, dispersed, and capable of striking instantaneously. Historical instincts of anticipating enemy movements would still be critical, but intuition alone is insufficient. Generals must integrate intelligence from networks, AI predictions, and real-time surveillance to understand an enemy whose capabilities and methods are constantly shifting. The battlefield has become as much a contest of information dominance as of firepower. WW2 leaders confronted ethical dilemmas, civilian casualties, proportionality of force, and the tension between military necessity and humanity. Decisions carried moral weight, though constrained by the laws and conventions of the time. Strategic bombing campaigns, for instance, sparked debates about necessity and consequence. Today, the moral stakes are magnified. Nuclear weapons, drone strikes, and cyberattacks introduce consequences that can ripple far beyond the battlefield. A single miscalculation can destroy cities, cripple economies, and escalate conflicts to catastrophic levels. How would Patton reconcile aggressive tactics with the potential for mass civilian harm from autonomous strikes? Could Rommel's penchant for daring maneuvers coexist with instantaneous global scrutiny and legal accountability? Modern warfare demands that leaders navigate an intricate web of ethics, public perception, and international law, balancing the imperatives of victory with the responsibility to protect human life. A test even more complex than anything faced during WW2. The psychological dimension of command has always been central to military success. WW2 generals relied on intuition, experience, and an acute understanding of human behavior. Patton's forceful presence could galvanize soldiers. Montgomery's meticulous planning instilled confidence. Zhukov's relentless drive forged discipline under the most brutal conditions. Stress, uncertainty, and the chaos of battle were constant, yet contained within the sensory and temporal limits of the time. Modern warfare, however, amplifies psychological pressures exponentially. A general must process vast amounts of information in real time, anticipate technological failure, and contend with adversaries operating in multiple domains simultaneously: physical, digital, and electronic. The constant presence of instant communication, global media scrutiny, and the potential for nuclear escalation adds layers of cognitive and emotional strain that WW2 leaders never faced. Adapting to this environment demands not only intellectual acuity, but resilience, emotional intelligence, and the capacity to maintain decisiveness amid unprecedented complexity. Psychological endurance is no longer about enduring the chaos of a single battlefield. It is about navigating the relentless, multidimensional stress of an interconnected global conflict. March 14, 2025. A sprawling desert landscape stretches beneath the unforgiving sun, a theater transformed by technology yet haunted by the echoes of history. Overhead, swarms of drones circle in precise patterns, relaying every movement to centralized command nodes. Satellite feeds offer uninterrupted views, from armored columns advancing across sand to concealed electronic sensors monitoring heat signatures. The battlefield is no longer a single front. It is a multidimensional network of threats and opportunities. In this environment, Patton receives reports of a mechanized column attempting to flank his position. Instinct drives him to act swiftly. In the past, he would have charged, tanks roaring, artillery following in synchronized rhythm. Today, his forces are supplemented by drones capable of guiding precision strikes, disrupting supply lines, and tracking enemy movements in real time. He orders a combined maneuver. Ground units advance under the cover of drone-supplied intelligence, while autonomous vehicles engage detected armored units. Seconds matter. Hesitation could allow the enemy to exploit openings. Rommel, observing from a forward command post, considers a rapid counterattack. His strategy relies on flexibility and exploitation of terrain, a principle unchanged, yet complicated by modern technology. He deploys decoy units equipped with electronic countermeasures, feeding false data to enemy surveillance systems. Meanwhile, cyber specialists under his direction attempt to infiltrate the opponent's communications network, creating confusion and delaying response times. His desert instincts guide him, but now the tools at his disposal magnify both opportunity and risk. Montgomery, meticulously analyzing satellite imagery and real-time telemetry, calculates the optimal coordination of artillery, drone strikes, and mechanized units. Every potential move is modeled, every risk quantified. His planning mirrors the precision of El-Alamein, yet the stakes are amplified. A single miscalculation could trigger collateral damage far beyond the battlefield or allow cyber disruption to compromise his forces. For him, modern warfare is an extension of logistics and probability. Preparation and redundancy are lifelines in an environment where speed and unpredictability dominate. The enemy adapts. Autonomous reconnaissance units, guided by AI algorithms, detect openings and probe defensive lines. Cyber intrusions target critical communication nodes, threatening to sever the link between generals and their troops. The generals, masters of intuition and strategy, must interpret these unseen threats while maintaining command over physical and digital assets. Orders are issued, revised, and executed within seconds, a pace that would have overwhelmed even the most seasoned WW2 commander without modern tools. Amid the chaos, the human element persists. Soldiers on the ground, operators, drivers, technicians look to their commanders for clarity and confidence. Patton's audacity inspires immediate action. Rommel's adaptability encourages initiative. Montgomery's meticulous planning reassures those executing complex, simultaneous maneuvers. Decisions ripple through layers of command. Amplified by technology, yet grounded in human judgment. A drone strike disables a key armored unit. Cyber disruption momentarily halts the enemy advance. Each small victory is decisive, each error potentially catastrophic. As the engagement escalates, the generals confront another, far graver threat, the specter of nuclear escalation. Intelligence reports indicate that the adversary possesses tactical nuclear assets capable of devastating concentrated forces. The historical principle of decisive, bold action now collides with the reality of annihilation at a single misstep. Patton, whose instinct favors rapid aggression, must weigh the consequences of a strike that could provoke irreversible retaliation. Rommel considers withdrawal and deception, adapting mobility to avoid catastrophe. Montgomery, calculating probabilities and potential fallout, seeks to minimize exposure while maintaining operational integrity. Every tactical choice is imbued with existential weight. Time compresses. Real-time data streams provide unparalleled clarity, yet decision-making becomes more agonizing, more immediate. The generals operate at the intersection of historical instinct and technological reality, each action magnified, each misjudgment amplified. In this crucible, strategy, leadership, and human judgment are tested as never before. The battlefield, a network of sand, steel, and digital signals, becomes a proving ground for timeless military genius in a world transformed by drones, cyberwarfare, and nuclear threat. The decisive moment approaches, which strategies succeed, which fail, and which leaders adapt to the velocity and complexity of modern conflict. The answer will shape not only the battle's outcome, but the very understanding of how historical brilliance meets contemporary warfare. March 14, 2025 continues. The battlefield is a matrix of shifting variables. Drones dart overhead, autonomous units probe defensive lines, and cyber threats ripple across networks. The generals, masters of an era when intuition and human observation ruled, now navigate a reality in which milliseconds can determine victory or catastrophe. Patton, acting on instinct, orders a high-speed armored thrust supported by drone-guided artillery. Enemy units, previously hidden behind electronic countermeasures, are exposed through coordinated sensor feeds. Tanks and armored vehicles advance with unprecedented precision. Where in World War II, the assault would have taken hours to organize, modern integration allows it to unfold in minutes. The result is immediate. Enemy flanks collapse under the combined weight of kinetic strikes and digital disruption. Yet, Patton is acutely aware of the stakes. A single miscalculation could provoke nuclear escalation. He tempers audacity with caution, balancing instinct with real-time intelligence. Rommel exploits the chaos differently. Known for using deception and mobility, he orchestrates a series of feints and misdirections. Decoy convoys, embedded with electronic jammers, draw enemy attention while main forces maneuver through less defended sectors. Simultaneously, his cyber specialists inject false data into enemy systems, slowing their reaction time. His approach mirrors the Desert Fox's North African campaigns, but magnified by modern technology. Adaptability, previously confined to physical terrain, now extends into cyberspace. Rommel's success is a testament to the enduring value of improvisation and anticipation, principles unchanged, yet operating on an accelerated scale. Montgomery, true to form, orchestrates a methodical coordination of firepower. Drone strikes, artillery barrages, and mechanized units advance in tightly synchronized patterns. Predictive algorithms allow him to anticipate enemy movements, reducing uncertainty and minimizing exposure to surprise attacks. Every maneuver is calculated, every contingency accounted for. Unlike Patton's aggressive improvisation or Rommel's adaptive deception, Montgomery's triumph relies on meticulous control over the modern battlefield, demonstrating that methodical strategy retains its potency even in an era dominated by rapid, automated warfare. As the engagement reaches its peak, cyber and electronic warfare intensify. Enemy AI-controlled units attempt to exploit gaps in communication and sensor networks. Generals must react instantly to both visible and invisible threats. Patton issues split-second adjustments. Rommel redirects units to avoid cyber-induced traps, and Montgomery recalibrates his strategy in real time. Their actions reveal a critical truth. The principles of command, observation, anticipation, and decisive action remain relevant, but the context has evolved. The battlefield has expanded into dimensions they never previously faced, yet their adaptability is the key to survival and success. The shadow of nuclear escalation looms. Reports suggest the adversary could deploy tactical nuclear weapons against concentrated forces. Decisions now carry existential consequences. Patton's natural aggressiveness is tempered by caution. He must weigh the potential for annihilation against operational gain. Rommel, ever cautious with resources and men, focuses on dispersal and strategic withdrawal to reduce vulnerability. Montgomery, calculating probabilities and potential fallout, maintains control over operational tempo, ensuring forces remain effective without overexposing themselves. The general's historical instincts are tested against stakes that far exceed those of the Second World War. By the close of the engagement, results are evident. Patton's speed and aggression secure critical objectives with minimal casualties relative to potential risk. Rommel's deceptions and adaptive maneuvers neutralize enemy strengths and preserve flexibility. Montgomery's methodical approach stabilizes key fronts and ensures operational continuity despite chaos. Modern technology magnifies the impact of every decision, but human judgment, leadership, and historical instinct prove decisive. The climax demonstrates a timeless truth. While tools, threats, and operational environments evolve, the qualities that defined WW2 generals, decisiveness, adaptability, and strategic foresight, remain indispensable. The battlefield, a fusion of kinetic action, digital intelligence, and ethical complexity, challenges commanders in ways unimaginable in the 1940s. Yet it also validates their genius, revealing that leadership, courage, and insight are as critical today as they were 80 years ago. The dust settles on a battlefield transformed by both history and technology. Armored units that would once have clashed in prolonged engagements now lie scattered, neutralized by precision strikes guided by drones hovering silently overhead. Cyber operations have disrupted enemy communications, leaving scattered units confused and ineffective. For the first time, the timeless instincts of WW2 generals are tested against the unrelenting speed and scope of modern warfare, and the results are illuminating. Patton's aggressive maneuvering achieved decisive territorial gains. His instincts, honed in the European campaigns, translated into rapid exploitation of vulnerabilities revealed by real-time intelligence. Yet even success carried weight. Collateral damage from automated systems and precision-guided munitions highlighted the ethical complexities absent from his previous battles. Victory was no longer measured solely in territory or enemy casualties, but also in the management of risk across technological and human domains. Patton adapted quickly, demonstrating that audacity, when tempered by situational awareness, remains a formidable tool in the modern arsenal. Rommel's adaptive strategies were equally effective. By leveraging deception, mobility, and cyber disruption, he outmaneuvered an opponent whose technology mirrored his own. The Desert Fox's approach proved that flexibility, the hallmark of his North African campaigns, can be extended into the digital domain. Autonomous units, electronic countermeasures, and falsified intelligence amplified his tactical ingenuity, yet also introduced new vulnerabilities. Every decision carried amplified consequences, reflecting the complexity of modern command. Rommel's ability to read the battlefield, anticipate enemy reactions, and exploit openings under these conditions underscored a timeless truth. The principles of maneuver warfare transcend eras, even when executed in a networked, high-tech environment. Montgomery's meticulous orchestration of forces ensured stability and operational continuity, reinforcing the importance of planning and preparation. His use of predictive modeling, synchronized drone strikes, and real-time surveillance demonstrated how disciplined, methodical approaches maintain their potency despite advances in technology. Unlike Patton or Rommel, whose strength lay in rapid adaptation or bold initiative, Montgomery's success rested on control and predictability. The modern battlefield magnified the effectiveness of his planning, while simultaneously exposing the vulnerability of over-reliance on structured procedures in a fast-moving, chaotic environment. Amid these outcomes, the psychological and moral dimensions of command become evident. The generals faced scenarios in which every action was amplified. Drones, cyber networks, and precision munitions transformed seconds into critical windows of consequence. Decisions once reversible or delayed now had immediate, far-reaching implications. The threat of nuclear escalation, while ultimately avoided, remained a persistent shadow, forcing consideration of existential risk in a way that historical campaigns never demanded. Leaders who had previously dealt with physical destruction now contended with potential global catastrophe, testing their judgment and moral compass to unprecedented degrees. From a strategic perspective, the engagement illustrates how historical expertise can adapt to modern warfare when paired with technology and awareness. Patton's audacity, Rommel's flexibility, and Montgomery's meticulous control complement and contrast with one another, demonstrating that different leadership styles can each find relevance in a technologically complex environment. Yet the consequences of missteps are magnified. A tactical miscalculation could cascade into catastrophic failure, an error in cyber defense could cripple operations, and the ethical weight of decisions is heavier than ever before. This aftermath also emphasizes the human cost of modern warfare. Even with precision and automation, soldiers remain vulnerable, and the psychological strain of operating in a high-speed, multi-domain battlefield is intense. The general's decisions shape not only the course of combat, but also the experience, stress, and survival of those executing orders. In this context, the principles of leadership, clarity, decisiveness, and inspiration are as vital as the weapon systems themselves. The battlefield quiets, but its echoes extend far beyond sand and steel. The engagement, though hypothetical, offers a stark vision of the consequences when WWAI leadership meets 21st century warfare. The integration of historical strategy with modern technology reveals enduring truths. Leadership, adaptability, and judgment remain central, yet the stakes are amplified by automation, intelligence networks, and the latent threat of nuclear escalation. Strategically, the engagement demonstrates the profound effect of information dominance. Drone surveillance, cyber operations, and real-time satellite feeds enabled generals to anticipate enemy movements with unprecedented accuracy. Historical principles, seizing initiative, exploiting weak points, and concentrating force at decisive moments retain their relevance, but their execution is faster, more lethal, and morally complex. Patton's rapid exploitation of exposed flanks, Rommel's adaptive countermoves, and Montgomery's disciplined synchronization illustrate that WWAI genius is not obsolete. It must, however, be translated through modern tools. Command remains an art, but the canvas has expanded beyond geography into cyberspace, automation, and global perception. The moral and psychological dimensions are equally significant. The immediacy of modern warfare places ethical responsibility at the forefront. Collateral damage from precision strikes, the potential for cyber-induced civilian harm, and the looming threat of nuclear escalation compel leaders to balance aggression with caution in ways WWAI generals never encountered. Patton's instinct for audacity is tempered by ethical considerations. Rommel's opportunism now navigates digital uncertainty. Montgomery's discipline must account for the rapid, unpredictable consequences of algorithmic warfare. The interplay between human judgment and technological power highlights a central lesson. Leadership in the modern era demands both decisiveness and foresight, tempered by moral clarity. From a doctrinal perspective, the scenario underscores the limits and potential of adaptation. Historical strategies, maneuver warfare, combined arms, and meticulous logistics retain efficacy when integrated with modern systems. Yet the battlefield's multidimensionality challenges assumptions of predictability and control. Autonomy in weapon systems, real-time surveillance, and cyber threats introduce variables that commanders cannot entirely foresee. Success depends not only on knowledge of terrain and enemy capabilities, but also on mastery of information flow, risk assessment, and human-machine coordination. The general's effectiveness illustrates a principle that transcends eras. Strategy is only as strong as the commander's ability to interpret and act on evolving information. The human dimension is never diminished. Soldiers and operators executing these strategies must navigate heightened stress, rapid decision cycles, and ethical ambiguity. Generals serve as anchors, providing guidance, clarity, and morale. Leadership, once measured by battlefield presence and command voice, now also requires cognitive endurance, psychological resilience, and the capacity to synthesize overwhelming data streams into actionable decisions. The psychological pressure of modern command is intensified by speed, connectivity, and global scrutiny, yet the human qualities that distinguished WWAI leaders remain indispensable. Ultimately, the aftermath of placing historical commanders in a contemporary context reveals both continuity and change. Tactical brilliance, strategic vision, and decisiveness endure as timeless virtues. Yet technology transforms scale, scope, and ethical stakes, creating a theater in which decisions ripple instantaneously, and errors can have global consequences. The lessons extend beyond military theory. Adaptability, moral judgment, and the ability to integrate human insight with technological power are essential for effective leadership in any era. As the dust settles, it becomes clear that the meeting of past genius and modern capability is not a collision, but a continuum. WWAI generals, transplanted into the 21st century, illuminate both the enduring qualities of effective leadership and the evolving demands of modern warfare. Their strategies, instincts, and courage offer a lens through which to understand how humanity negotiates the power of technology, the weight of ethical responsibility, and the imperatives of decisive action in a world transformed. History and modernity meet on a continuum of human decision. The battlefield has changed, drones hover where scouts once ran, cyber networks shape strategy, and nuclear weapons cast a shadow over every maneuver. Yet the core of command remains timeless: judgment, courage, and adaptability. The WW2 generals who shaped the 20th century faced challenges defined by terrain, logistics, and human limitations. Placed in the 21st century, they confront amplified stakes, but their brilliance endures, revealing that leadership transcends technology. The exercise of imagining Patton, Rommel, Montgomery, and Zhukov navigating today's warfare is more than a thought experiment. It is a meditation on how human intellect interacts with tools, how instinct meets data, and how ethical responsibility persists even as weapons grow more lethal. Speed and precision do not replace discernment. Drones and algorithms cannot substitute for experience, intuition, or the capacity to inspire. Modern generals inherit their predecessors' lessons, yet they must apply them across a battlefield stretched across networks, airspace, and cyberspace. Perhaps the most striking insight is the interplay between opportunity and restraint. In World War II, decisive action often meant physical risk. Today, it carries the potential for existential consequence. The general's enduring qualities, strategic vision, rapid adaptation, and psychological resilience remain the anchors upon which effective command rests. They remind us that human judgment, exercised with skill and moral awareness, shapes the outcomes of even the most technologically advanced conflicts. As we step back from this hypothetical theater, the reflection is clear. The evolution of warfare is profound, but not absolute. Machines may extend reach and amplify effect, but they do not replace the human element. The minds that once shaped tanks, artillery, and infantry still illuminate the principles that govern command, clarity under pressure, anticipation of the enemy, and the courage to act decisively. In the age of drones and nukes, history teaches that technology is a force multiplier, but humanity remains the ultimate arbiter of strategy and consequence. The sun sets over the digital desert, drones returning to their orbits, and the battlefield falls silent. The generals of history, transporting across decades, leave behind a simple truth: leadership, grounded in intellect, courage, and moral clarity, endures even as the tools of war transform.